August 20th, 1944, and Operation bagration has finally concluded as of yesterday, August 19th, 1944. If you've been living under a rock, here's a quick summary of all the events that have been taking place in Poland since this past June. June 22nd, the operation began, and the fight occurred mostly in western Poland and Ukraine, as an aggressive Red Army attacked the Germans.
It appears that this operation will hopefully be one of the last main Soviet attacks, as this war seems to be nearing to a close in this next year. This fact indicates why the Soviet felt comfortable enough to push on the German Army Group Center. At this time, the Soviet felt comfortable because over half the Ukraine was free and Leningrad. Stalin felt that this push was still necessary, though, because Hitler's army had over 235 divisions in the east compared to the 65 divisions in the west. The goal of this operation was the removal of Germans from Poland, and it has been a success.
An important battle that occurred prior to bagration was the Battle of Stalingrad, because it was an important win for the Red Army. It gave them momentum going forward in the war. They caught the Germans by surprise, giving them the early advantage. Later, in the second period of the war, a counteroffensive began from the Soviet against the German forces that were surrounding Stalingrad. The Red Army's attack proved to be a success as they overtook the German 6th Infantry last year in 1943.
When it came to Operation bagration, although they would win, the Red Army did not just walk all over the Germans without them making some strong counterattacks, and they were not an easy enemy to defeat, although it did come rather quickly, as they still had the power of the German Wehrmacht. However, the Soviets were still able to come out on top because of few strategical errors made by Hitler and his army. As the Red Army began their deep line attacks, Hitler refused to let his men retreat, which would allow for further reservation of manpower, but instead, his army fell victim to mass casualties. Hitler and his fight-to-the-last bullet policy played into the Soviet hands perfectly, as they knew the Germans would only be moving between lines and not fully retreating.
There were other problems with Germany's defense, as they had no easy movement paths in Belarusia, but they had been relying on its swampy terrain to provide them defense. However, this operation was not just German failure, but also Soviet success. The Soviets were superior to the Germans in both manpower and firepower. The Soviets had 1.7 times the men, 1.8 times the artillery and motors, 1.6 times the tanks and assault guns, and 4.9 times the operational aircraft. The Soviets also had more people in their reserve to pull in when they began losing men, and their weapons were very powerful, which played into their win.
The Soviets were also able to have success for the Allies because of their technological developments during the time period. These new technologies included tanks, aircraft development, and artillery development. The Soviets focused their technological advancements on greater military power in the 40s. In 1942, the artillery was only 12,000 pieces, and it has now increased to over 40,000 pieces. The production of the aircrafts also has increased rapidly. The production has rose from 25,000 last year to 34,000 this year. By advancing their weaponry these past couple of years, the Soviets have been able to gain great advantages over the Germans.
Overall, it is no surprise that the Soviets were able to effectively take back control of the East and Poland. They had all the elements in their favor, as they caught their enemy by surprise, had strategic advantages, and also had more men and weapons. The Soviets were able to completely destroy all three German armies and cause extensive damage to a fourth. The Soviets had two main strategies in the operation. One, a Russian word, maskirovka, accounted for the element of surprise, and the other was the Soviet deep battle. Though the Germans were able to make some pushes back against the Soviet, as of yesterday, Poland is still free of Nazi control. How will this change the war?
Although the war is yet to run its full course, I have some predictions about how this might play into the grander scheme of all the events in the war. This specific operation will play a great significance for the Allies because Germany lost one of its biggest Eastern European footholds. Not only did Germany lose the land, but the Soviets gained it. which will give them more superior position in the war moving forward. The army will be able to more easily threaten the Germans from the east now that they are in control of Poland. It also gives more power to the Allies' forces in general because they now have troops threatening Germany from the east and the west, making it a two-front war. From this point on, I would not be surprised if the Allies continue to have a more decisive win, while Germany continues to lose their power.
This operation can be applied to be shown as evidence for the military strategist Clausewitz. Clausewitz's idea that the goal of warfare is to make the enemy submit completely to their idea is demonstrated in this war. Although the Germans are not defending their own land, the Army Group Center was important for their operations. The Soviets attacking this crucial tactical location for the Germans forced them to move back. By doing this, it demonstrates Clausewitz's theory that one wins a battle or operation more by forcing their opponent to submit. Clausewitz shows this theory through his comparison of war to two wrestlers. The other idea of Clausewitz that is expanded on in this battle is that war is an extension of policy. Because the Soviets wanted to push the Germans out of the east, and because they could not do this peacefully, they were forced to use military force to push them out.
The entirety of this war so far has been total war, but the concept can be applied to this operation alone. The Soviets experienced total war because they reinforced troops and had many weapons to be used against the Germans. However, in Germany, they did not show total war because they did not reinforce their troops. The Germans would be seen to show limited war because of the way they fought by not reinforcing and not having and using all of the weapons that the Soviets did. Then the Soviets would be seen to show total war in this operation, and the Germans would be seen to show limited war.
Operation Bagration is over, and that was just a quick recap of the 3-month Soviet attack on German forces. Go Allies!